Welcome to the Jacksonville ARTCC component of VATSIM. I'm Dr. Chuck Kowaleski. I am a S3 controller and mentor here in Jacksonville and also a real-world IFR pilot. We've created these videos for you so that you can do the classroom training on your own time and not have to waste time on one-on-one training when you want to get into Sweatbox as soon as you can. So you'll be completing all of these classes. I think I misspoke on class 2 and said there were 3. There are actually about 6. You'll want to complete all of these videos, and then when you go to your first Sweatbox, there will be a knowledge check to assure that you understand all the information in these videos. And if not, then they'll do extra training, classroom training for you. But hopefully you'll understand everything and be able to get right into Sweatbox so that you can get your practical training done and get out there and start controlling aircraft in the virtual flight sim environment. So let's move on. The content for this is going to be communications, two-way radio communications, what the NATO phonetics are, call signs, and we'll sort of bring it all together at the end. Two-way communications, the what? Two-way radio communications exists when both the pilot and the air traffic controller are speaking to each other. It's not when you're speaking to another pilot, it's when you're speaking to the controller. In order to operate in certain airspaces and on certain flight rules, you have to have two-way communication. So the picture here is of a staff sergeant who's talking to somebody apparently. The where. So we talked about this in the airspace discussion. Go back to those videos if you need to understand where it's required for communications. But they're required in all areas. It's easier to just say everywhere except Class G and Class Echo. And I mentioned that in the airspace video. But again, go back and watch that video again if you need the review. Instrument flight rules aircraft have two-way communications for their entire flight, essentially. There are some rare occasions where they go off the frequency, but that's the exception rather than the rule. Why? And that's so that aircraft can operate safely and we can complete our mission of either not having aircraft, keeping aircraft separated, national security system, and to keep them moving efficiently through the airspace. Where or when they can't ensure their own safety, that's where the controller comes in. And in general, in VATSIM, obviously we don't have to worry about airspace collisions too much, but we still take it seriously and we still treat it as real world. And many of our pilots, when they get into two-way communication with the controllers, some of them are real good about doing their own spatial separation, but many times we're the only people keeping them separated. So the conditions for two-way communication is that the pilot contacted the controller and the controller read back the appropriate call sign. So, and then somehow has, the controller has, so that if the pilot said their call sign and has the appropriate controller's call sign, like Orlando approach or departure or Jacksonville center, that's a two-way communication. And then the other way around, same thing. If the controller acknowledges the pilot by their call sign. There are some cases where that's required, as I talked about in the airspace. So you have to have both things. The pilot has to acknowledge and the controller has to acknowledge in order to say that that's two-way communications. NATO phonetics. You probably already know these. If not, get a chart like this one, practice it a few times until you know it. You will, just through immersion, you will pick up the phonetic alphabet very quickly. But if you've never used it before, please read through it and understand it. I'm going to pronounce them for you because they have weird pronunciations. And why is that? It's because the radios are AM radios. They're not FM. They're not digital. And the reason for that is that FM radios and digital radios, when they lose signal, they lose it typically in a catastrophic manner. meaning it's completely unintelligible or there's no signal at all. When it's amplitude modulated, that does not happen. In amplitude modulated, as the signal degrades, it simply gets quieter or has more static on it. So there's a lot more leeway to know that your signal is you're getting farther away from the tower or farther away from the radar controller and recognize that, hey, maybe I'm too far away and should be on a different frequency. So that's why they have stuck with amplitude modulated radio communications across the world. So when when the signal is getting degraded, pronunciation of this alphabet becomes rather important in order not to hear a different letter than what was spoken. So it's Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, Golf, Hotel, India, Juliet, Kilo, Lima, Mike, November, Oscar, Papa, Quebec, not Quebec, Quebec, Romeo, Sierra, Tango, Uniform, Victor, Whiskey, X-Ray, Yankee, and Zulu. The numbers also have a pronunciation, and these are more commonly not done correctly, and they should be, because it's very easy to mispronounce one of these letters. You will notice that we don't have teens in here, like 19, 14, because we don't use that. We use, if we want to say 14, we use 1, 4. So these are 0, 1, 2, tree, not 3, tree, 4, fife. We don't say the V, we say an F, fife. 6, 7, and the 2 syllables is what makes this one important. Not 7, it's 7, 8. Niner is just not just 9, it's niner. And then 100, and not 1,000, but 1,000. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 100, 1,000 is how we say it. And again, that's so that when you have degraded AM communications, it's still intelligible across the radio. And as you know, because we have audio for VATSIM, by the way, we are simulating realistic AM modulation, so or amplitude modulation. So it does degrade in the simulated environment. So call signs, most of you are familiar with call signs. Commercial call signs have the 3-letter ICAO, not the European International one. We use the ICAO version of 3 letters. So Southwest would be called Southwest, and over time, there's a lot of them, but over time, just by immersion and practice, you learn what those 3 letters are for doing the Southwest ones. General aviation flights all have N numbers. In Canada, they have C numbers, and we see all sorts of international tail numbers in VATSIM. So you'll see things that are not American, not United States numbers, like November 4, 5, Papa Tango, and that's how you'd read it. 4, 5, Papa Tango. They typed it 5, but we say 5. They typed 4, but we say 4. So once you get used to the phonetics, that's how you'll read them out. You will hear people shortcut the call sign and say like Cessna 5 Papa Tango. That's okay, provided you have already said the call sign in its entirety at least once. So if the pilot calls you and they love to tell you they're in a TBM, so they'll say TBM 5 Papa Tango, Orlando approach, whatever. I have to read back to them as the first time, November 4, 5 Papa Tango. After that, I can use the TBM 5 Papa Tango if I want. So don't abbreviate until you've said the full call sign at least once. Same thing, Southwest 2702. That's how you would read them. You're allowed to combine these and say 2702 or 2702. You're allowed to do that. So there are some special call signs, and people in the VATSIM love to use them. They include these prefixes, and again, you'll get used to these, but you can cut and paste or snapshot this chart so you have it. Uh, these are in the 2-3-1 of the .65, so you can get them there as well. And I won't go over in too much detail, but we do see folks who like to use these call signs in the simulated environment. Remember that even if they're using a military call sign, VATSIM does not support or condone the use of military operations practice in the VATSIM simulated environment. So bring it all together. Example of VFR Communications. There's a video here, which you can play. Again, I'm not embedding videos. And there's another one for IFR Communications. Please play that to get used to how it sounds. If you listen to Broadcastify or Live ATC, you've probably heard plenty of examples of the VFR and IFR communications. And that's it for Class 3. This was a relatively short one of the Delivery Ground Student 1 classes, and look forward to seeing you at the next class. Thank you.